You're listening to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, where we champion music of all genres, and we believe vinyl is king.
Vinyl is king.
Welcome back to the Blind Tiger Record Club on air. We're very excited to be back with all of you tonight listening on Lightning 100, or if you're listening to the recast on your favorite podcast platform. The show is available on podcast platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Apple, really almost all of them. I'm David Williams, and as always, I'm here with Rudy Newman.
Hey, everybody.
And Kevin Lee.
Hey, glad to be here.
We have a really good show tonight. I'm always excited to talk about the albums in our program, but tonight it feels especially packed with good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I like when we've got all four, records are like, we're all excited about each one.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're discussing all four styles represented in the Blind Tiger Record Club's August Records of the Month program. Our singer-songwriter album is from the artist who is making her second appearance in the club. We got a lot of that tonight, too. We got a lot of repeaters tonight. But it's Jade Bird, and her new album is called Different Kinds of Light. The rock and alternative record is the first album in almost a decade from the amazing Jacob Dylan and crew. It's the Wallflowers' new album, Exit Wounds. Our Jazz, Soul, and Blues album this month is one of our favorite modern-day retro soul artists. Duran Jones and The Indication returned for their third time to the Blind Tiger Record Club Record of the Month program. That's the most we've ever picked an artist for the club, and there's a reason for that you will hear some of tonight as we discuss the new album, Private Space.
Mostly because they're amazing.
Yeah. The last style we will discuss is classics, and this month we discussed The Best Of by the Psychedelic Furs. Well, look, if you enjoy listening to the albums we discuss tonight and appreciate this show, the best way you can support us is by becoming a member or shopping at the B.T.R.C. record store. At Blind Tiger Record Club, we curate four styles, the ones that I just mentioned, for our members each month. A club membership is the best way to secure these titles each month, and many of them are honestly hard to find after release. If you haven't made the format leap to vinyl, we can help you with that. We have turntables for every level of collector, from entry to serious collector. Just go to blindtigerrecordclub.com, and you can see our membership details. With easy-to-read instructions and descriptions, you can actually start your membership with one of the albums that we are discussing tonight. You can also shop the thousands of titles that we have available in the record store. So think about that tonight as you listen to the show. So on July 9th, the Wallflowers released the band's first album since 2012, titled Exit Wounds, on New West Records. As soon as I heard that New West was releasing this, we called up our label rep and wanted to make sure that we could get this album in the program.
Yeah.
All of us here, big Wallflower fans.
Big New West.
Kevin was telling us off mic when he saw him, when was it, 94 with Sheryl Crow?
Yeah, I was at the Paramount Theater in Seattle, Sheryl Crow with Wallflowers as direct support. And it was just one of those magical evenings. And I knew the guitar player at the time was a guy named Michael Ward, who used to be in a band called School of Fish. And so just got amazing seats, and just one of those great nights. And he had just really hit, right? That first single just really hit. So everything was kind of new to him. I mean, obviously he's always had this famous father, but his whole his career was kind of
yeah.
brand new, and just the instant star quality was so obvious. And stuff.
And that's a good point. Hopefully, everyone listening knows this, but Jacob Dylan, is the lead singer of the Wallflowers and is the son of legendary music icon Bob Dylan. And as much as I recognize the greatness of Bob Dylan and the impact of his career, I've always been more drawn to Jacob Dylan and the Wallflowers. I know that's music sacrilege, but it's just true.
We're not supposed to say that stuff on mic, but we say it anyways.
I'm with you as well, and it might be a generational thing.
Yeah.
But as well, I'm a big Wallflowers fan.
Yeah. And we just always talk about the fact that like Bob Dylan wrote amazing songs that everyone can sing. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little bit better than he actually could sing.
Yeah, he's just got one of those distinctive voices that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's like Neil Young.
But he's written amazing songs.
Yeah.
But his son is a better rocker.
Well, so it has been, almost a decade since we've heard from him. In 2018, Jacob Dylan hosted a documentary on the music of Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
It was titled Echoes in the Canyon. It's incredible, and the soundtrack even featured some of the live performance that Jacob did with a lot of special guests.
Yes. That's the coolest
film.
part of it. Is
Yeah.
like at the end of all the sections of talking, they like perform together, and you see them all play a song together. It's
Well,
really cool.
as good as that documentary was, and it's one of the better documentaries I've seen in the last few years. It just made me want to hear the Wallflowers again.
Yeah.
So,
And from, I'll tell you, on that documentary, I lived in Laurel Canyon
Yes.
on Wonderland Boulevard, and it still feels like that there. There's so many people around there, old school and new school, that you'll see. You're like, oh my God, this person just jogged by my house, and that person's at the store. Where it's so creative around there still. It's great to see that hasn't left that area. Yeah.
Well, the Wallflowers debut released in 1992, and really for the next decade, they were one of the most revered rock and alternative bands in the country. The band's breakout album was 1996, Bringing Down the Horse. That's around the time you saw them, Kevin.
The monster.
It charted all over the world. It went number 4 on the Billboard 200. It was number 1 on Heatseeker's chart. It went multi-platinum, and it produced the singles 6th Avenue Heartache, The Difference, 3 Marlenas, and the smash hit One Headlight.
So 4 singles off of arguably your biggest album.
Yeah. The first one really wasn't
I don't think it had anything.
This was the breakout record in '96, and since that time, the band has continued to release albums with radio hits and consistently charted, especially at AAA radio. It has charted at AAA radio. I believe they've had a number 1 off every album.
Wow.
All the way through to 2012. We talked about this chart when we discussed the Counting Crows, but Billboard released a chart called the Greatest of All Time AAA Artists, just to celebrate, 25 years of the format.
Yeah.
And on that, we had talked about the Counting Crows being so high on that. Well, the Wallflowers is another one. They're number 12 on that Greatest All Time Artist list for AAA. So, Jacob's also released a couple of solo albums, but that was in 2008 and 2010. So that was, kind of before they took this hiatus.
Yeah.
where
Some good
we
tracks
didn't
on
hear.
those solo albums too. Something Good This Way, or Something Wicked This Way Comes is a really good one.
Yeah. So it's just been a better part of a decade, other than the Echoes in the Canyon project, that we've really heard much from them. And, he's been writing some for TV and film, composing with other artists. He's performed on compilations. He's done background vocals with artists like Sean Colvin and Holly Williams. I think he was on Lucinda Williams' last record. So I guess he stayed busy, but it's been pretty low key.
Yeah.
And so for me, hearing when this record was coming out, I was pretty excited.
Especially that it's produced by Butch.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
I knew that was going
right?
to be a big factor for Dave.
The album debuted at number 183 on the Billboard 200, and one of the early retail single releases was a track called Maybe Your Heart's Not In It No More.
It's gone quiet, it's gone cold, acting like someone's you don't know. Well, used to rumble, used to roar, whatever it's doing, it didn't before. And maybe your heart's not in it no more. See the shadow crossing the floor. Don't the shield remind you of yours? There's no one left here. You can lower your sword and you're the only one showing up for the war. And maybe your heart's not in it no more. Out of contact and out of zone.
This is a classic Wallflowers type of feel and approach to a song. Great lyrics, and that B3 that's in there to support the guitar work, which is always stellar. He always has different people on these records, but it's always really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, having the production with Butch Walker on it, it's just a great record.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the album's produced by Butch. And he's a producer that we follow pretty closely because, like Dave Cobb, we're just really big fans of his production style.
A lot of his projects end up in our program or in our record store.
Along with being a very talented artist in his own right, over the past couple of years, he's produced artists like Elizabeth Cook, Green Day, Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20. He did Kevin Griffin's solo record from Better Than Ezra. He's worked with the Struts, Fall Out Boy, Weezer. He's just really good at doing rock with almost like these power pop tendencies, like stuff like we talked about when we were discussing Weezer. It's just, he's really, really good at almost like, I don't want this to demean it in any way, but it's almost like happy production. They're really, really up,
It's
fun.
like glistening pop production.
He's really good at the key to almost all pop is vocal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's really good, I think, at getting the best out. Even out of Weezer, where you initially think it's more about guitar
Right.
and stuff, but especially with Rob and stuff like that, it's really delivering. And that's where those big crossover hits come from, or from the vocal hooks. It's not from the bass run or something like that most of the time, or the tone of this. It's that vocal hook, and he's really good, I think, about getting that out of the performer, keeping their signature, and hitting the audience right where right
It matters.
right in the sweet spot. So he's just a talented producer, and I think he approaches each artist in a great way as far as how can I get the most out of this and have it deliver what the audience wants to hear.
I feel like I agree the exact same thing about Dave Cobb, in a vocal.
Oh, for
he
sure.
always treats the vocal with it's
Warm,
like his little
warm
baby
out front.
And
It's the key.
Well, and that's the thing is I couldn't wait to hear what he was going to do with a band like the Wallflowers, and Jacob Dylan in particular, just because he's so thoughtful and almost intentional and deliberate about everything he does.
And Jacobs is a voice I feel like you recognize kind of immediately on a song. When it's Jacob Dylan singing. You know what I'm saying?
He clearly enjoys collaborating, and on this album, he brings in artist Shelby Lynn for background vocals. She sings on 4 tracks.
I thought it was Sheryl Crow singing on the
Well, she
on the
does. She
opening
kind of
track.
has some Sheryl Crow-isms, in her vocal a little bit here or there. But the track "Darlin' Hold On" is actually a duet. So she sings background vocals on, I guess, 3 songs.
Yes,
but really does a duet with Jacob on 1 track. I think they sound amazing together.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
The album was written over the past 4 years. It's just interesting to think about the songwriter sitting down and composing an entire group of songs, but over that length of time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just going to be...
That feels disjointed, right?
It almost feels like it could be.
It's a long time.
Well, we don't know. Maybe those songs were all written in one short period. Maybe they were written over 4 years.
Yeah.
A lot of times it has to deal with what's going on. I think a lot of people, when they look at an artist and they look at their schedule or their scheduled releases, they don't take into mind that there's other things in life other than what they do for a living.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the reason why they're out a bit of work for a while, or it's why they shoved everything into a particular time frame, or other people they were working with, producers weren't available or something like that. So there's a bunch
schedules.
There's a bunch of things,
flux.
that can do that. I do think that it's really evident though when you get to artists' careers and you can see the first record where they had most of the time no money up until then, and they were struggling, and everything is in. And then the sophomore record, it
was spread out,
and they were touring,
so
they didn't get a chance to write all that time. And then if they're successful by the time of the third record, it's tough to write about being broke when you're not, right? And stuff. And so all of a sudden it changes things a little bit. And the artist is getting older, and all these things change.
Great point.
So it's, but I just appreciate this artist. I think he's always has been a genuine talent. He's not one of those guys that rode on the coattails of his father.
No.
And,
not
I
even
always
remotely.
listen to Mr. Jacob Dylan.
Yep. Well, the first single was a track called Roots and Wings. It just peaked at number 6 on AAA last week. It's just what you would expect from the Wallflowers, and in my opinion, it's really good to have them back. This is Roots and Wings.
You're such a heavy bird. You'd never get far on your own. You'll never have a use for your feathers while you're hopping down the road. Yeah, you were born to walk the earth, with your back against the cold. No, you never had a purpose till I wore you on my back like a coat. You're in your evening gloves. You're off the farm taking big city drugs. No matter how far you get, now let it sink in that I gave you roots. And baby, I gave you wings. Yeah, I gave you roots and I gave you wings. And I showed you how to swing.
So a lot of editorials, are starting to at least cover the release of this. A few have done reviews like Spill Magazine and American Songwriter, and they've given it solid reviews so far. If you're a fan of Dylan and the Wallflowers, then you'll definitely want to get this one while you can. This is another band that's very limited on vinyl. It's just
hard to find, and when they
part
show
of it's
up,
the time frame. When he broke, it was not vinyl.
Yep.
But they just it's one of those bands that haven't come back, and resurged on vinyl. And matter of fact, when they reissued,
Bringing Down the Horse, they shipped us copies.
They did, all of them. We had two. It's a double record, but we got
Two
all
side
of them
A
were
and side
packaged with
Bs.
2 side A's and B's, right?
Yeah,
And so
there was no side C.
we had
or
a lot of
D.
returns on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
it's
they
just,
fixed it, and
Yeah.
they're available now.
Yeah.
You can get one in our store, I think, if we still got it for sale.
We also have this album, Exit Wounds, in limited edition, purple and clear splatter. So that one definitely will not be here long. And once we're out of them, we probably won't be able to get them. So, the band just started a 53-date arena tour.
They got a
It's
big
running July 16th through October 7th with Matchbox 20.
Great combination, right?
Yeah, you'll be at that one, won't
yeah,
you?
I will be at that one.
Honestly, we should all go to that show.
Not you, Rudy.
Okay.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Blind Tiger Record Club on air. Those are the Blind Tiger Record Club's August Records of the Month. We truly hope you heard something that inspired you to explore some new music this week. If you want to find out more about any of the albums we discussed today, go to blindtigerrecordclub.com and go to the homepage, and you can read more about all the records that we talked about on this show. You can also learn how to become a member. One of the biggest perks to memberships is that you don't miss out on these albums. So many of these releases sell out on release day, and they're really hard to find after that. If you like bin diving in record stores, you can do that, but sometimes it's really tough to find these records. With a club membership, you secure your copy every month. You can also start your membership with one of the albums we discussed today. Hopefully, you guys are checking out the podcast and you caught part 1 of our interview with Damon Johnson last Monday. It's a podcast-only episode, and it was a really great interview. Damon shared so many stories, and honestly, many of them you're not going to hear anywhere else.
And since we did that interview, there's another story that's happened that we'll share with you at a little bit later date when we're a little bit more free to talk about it. But we're going to take a little break here on our air show, and so until we hear you again, or you can, I guess, hear us again, and we see you again, we want to thank you for all your patronage and for listening to the show, and hopefully checking out the podcast and becoming a member of the Blind Tiger Record Club.
Well said, Kev. Part 2 of that interview will air next Monday, August 2nd. Once again, this is podcast only, so make sure that you subscribe and download this episode, and then you can catch up on part 1 if you haven't heard it yet. Our next episode on air on Lightning 100 is September 20th. We have a little bit of a break coming up here, as Kevin was mentioning, but we'll be back at the same time, Monday, September 20th, 8 p.m., right after the 615 on Lightning 100. We'll be discussing the September records of the month. So please follow the podcast, subscribe, like us, leave reviews and comments, tell your friends about the show, email Lightning 100. You can stay up to date on all that we're doing by signing up for our email list at the website. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. But most importantly, keep coming back. Lastly, thank you again to Lightning 100 for always supporting local art and events, and even shows like ours. Until next time, keep the wax spinning.